Welcome to the second of 4 videos teaching you how to use the patient browser in the 3Shape Ortho system. What you'll learn in this video is how to use the Ortho control panel, how to change settings, how to save those settings, and how to find the specific settings that control the patient browser. A few things you need to know before we start. So as you'll soon see, there are lots and lots of settings in the Ortho control panel. And this video only shows you the ones that are relevant for the patient browser. We actually do have a separate how-to video on all the other settings in the control panel. And remember then to note down the changes that you make, because once you commit a change, there's no undo. But let's have a look at how the Ortho control panel looks like. Okay, I'm now looking at my desktop, and the Ortho control panel will probably be there as well. It's an icon that looked like a little bit like a nut like this here. So I open it. And a few things you need to know. So every time you make a change to anything here, you click the save button like I do now, and then you have to click yes to commit those changes. And if you have Ortho Analyzer or Appliance Designer open at the same time, you need to close them and open it again so you can commit the changes, because those applications read the control panel settings upon startup. So there are really 3 groups of settings that control the behavior of the patient browser. So let's have a look at them one by one. Okay, but let's dig into the settings that are relevant to the patient browser. So all of these are under this area here called System Settings. So I'll click that now. So again, there's so many cool features in here, and make sure you check out the how-to video on the control panel for all these settings. So there are really 3 groups of settings here that control the behavior of the patient browser. So let's have a look at them one by one. So first up is the custom properties of the new patient, the new model set, and the drop-down list of clinics. So I will move down a little bit here. In fact, I'll make it a little taller so we can see better. So around midway down here, you have these areas here called Patient Info Custom Properties, Model Info Custom Properties, and then Clinics. So I'll show you what this is all about. So let me just open my Ortho Analyzer here. Okay, so I now have a clean Ortho Analyzer. I click the patient browser icon here. And when I click a new patient up here, you will see this new patient info dialog box here. And when I go back to the control panel, this is the dialog box here that I can actually change. So let's say that I want to make an extra field indicating what kind of insurance company that this particular patient would have. So what I'll do is I add another field into the patient info custom properties. So I'll just add here, call it insurance company, like this, and simply just click OK. So again, remember, I click save and yes, and then as I actually happen to have this open, Ortho Analyzer, I have to close it and open it again so it can read my changes. I now open the patient browser again. I click the new patient dialog box, and you can see there's actually a new field here called insurance company. You can do a little bit more advanced things here. If I go back to my control panel, I can add some default values in those drop-down fields here. So you see, as soon as you have added a custom field, this button here called default values becomes selectable. And if you click here, you can enter some default values that will create a drop-down list. This will make sense in a second. So let's say that I add 2 lines here. Let's call it, we can call it global insurance. And we can call another one perfect assurance. Like this. Again, I click OK. So I now have 2 default values for this new field that I created called insurance company. Again, I click save, commit those changes, Then I open Ortho Analyzer yet again. I open my patient browser. I click on that field, and you'll see here I now have a couple of default values here in my drop-down list, just like I made before. You can still enter other information, but at least you have some predefined features you can do here. Okay. So when I go back to my control panel, the same thing will happen with the model set information. I will show you that right now. Let's say that we have another field called status. And I just make a few values here. I'll just really quick call A, another one called B, and a third one, you guessed it by now, called C. All right. And then I'll save this as well and click OK. Yes, here. So when I open Ortho Analyzer yet again, so open my patient browser, I search for my patients, I select one of my patient, and I want to do a new model set, right? So you see the same here. I now have a new field that you did not have before called status, and you probably guessed it. I have three default values here, A, B, or C. So the two areas here, I'll go back to the control panel. They are identical. One is for when you create a new patient, and the other one here is when you create a new model set. There's a third one here that's a little bit special called clinics. I'll add a few names here, and you will see why this is a little bit special. So let me just do here called best ortho, and another one called perfect ortho. That will suffice for now. Again, I save, I commit the changes, and as always, I open Ortho Analyzer again. I click the patient browser, I click the new patient, and you'll see now in this special field that I have here, which is always there called clinic, I now have a couple of drop-down values here. Normally the clinic field is primarily for use when you don't have the 3Shape communicate integration, so this will allow you to add a few fields there. So that's the first area of the settings in the control panel that controls the behavior of the patient browser. So next up is the automatic patient ID generation. I will show you what I mean about that. So let me open Ortho Analyzer again. In the patient browser, when I create a new patient, you see this is a mandatory field, patient ID. Let's say that I type in a first name here, Peter Pan, and then create. It will tell me that I have no patient ID specified, so I have to create this number for myself. I can of course type in any number, sequential number, or any letters that I want here, but it's actually more convenient if the system actually generates its patient ID for me. So let's close this again, and I'll show you how that works. So a little bit further down from the areas that we worked with before, there's this area called automatic patient ID generation. So if I click yes to this, so a little tick mark in this, there's a couple of things that you could decide to do here. Normally I recommend that you maybe do date, or it could be social security number. Let's take actually social security number here. We can take last name and first name. Let's leave out date for the moment. So these are the three fields that will now generate the automatic patient ID for me. So I click Save, open Ortho Analyzer, I open the patient browser, select new patient, and you see this is now grayed out the patient ID because it'll be created automatically based on the social security number and the first name and the last name. So you'll probably wonder what happens if you don't put in a social security number. So let's do that, and you'll see immediately why it's a good idea maybe sometimes to have the date. So Peter Pan here, and I'll click create. it will actually tell me that there's a crucial field, in this case patient's social security number, that is not there. Do you want to create it anyway based on just the two fields that we have here? If I say yes, you see the Peter Pan here, the patient ID we have here at the lower end of the screen will actually just be Peter and Pan, based on those fields that I have here. So normally I recommend that it's up to you, of course, that if you do date, because date will always be there, that's the date when you create it. Date, last name and first name, that's a very good way to generate a patient ID. So that's automatic patient ID generation. Actually, the very same thing is also for when you create a model set. You can have the model set ID generated automatically, and also if you work in Appliance Designer, you can have the appliance ID generated for you automatically the very same way. And then finally, there are the miscellaneous settings, and these are at the bottom of the system settings here. There's a heading here, as you can see, called miscellaneous, and there are literally more than 20 settings here. So let's concentrate on the most popular ones. So the ones that our users use the most are, the first one here is this: allow patient and case info editing and allow patient and case deleting. It may be that certain users or certain workstations, you don't want this to happen. So if this particular version of or this workstation that I'm working on here, you don't want editing or you don't want case deletion, you simply just tick them off, and this particular user here or workstation will not be allowed to delete or edit any data. Normally I'll of course just leave them on. The second thing that also controls the behavior of the patient browser is the one just underneath here: allow multiple patient and case deletion. So as you can probably imagine, it's very convenient to have this on if you want to delete a lot of cases or a lot of patients in one go, but it's also a little bit dangerous, because if you have this on and you by mistake select all your patients and click delete, then all your patients will have been deleted, and you need to rescue from a backup the data that you have. So we recommend that you leave this off, but if you are in a situation where you do a lot of cleanup, you can momentarily, for instance, put this on here. And then there's the third one here, which is actually my favorite, which I always put on. So it's called automatic patient search when opening form. So just for a moment, I'll go back to Ortho Analyzer here and just close my patient browser. So you see, when I click on the patient browser here, this window is empty, and to get my list of patients, I click the search button. It may not be a lot just to click the search here, but I would really like my patients just to be displayed automatically when I open the patient browser. And as you can probably guess, this is a setting where you do this. So I'll close Ortho Analyzer here, and I will set a tick mark in here: automatic patient search when opening form. I'll click save, commit them, open Ortho Analyzer again. And now I'm back, and when I click the patient browser now, hey presto, it's already pre-populated with all my patients here. So this is one of my favorite settings for sure. And then the final one I want to show you, which is also a favorite of mine, is one called large previews. In fact, if I just go back here and show you how it works without this setting. I'm now back. I click the patient browser, and you see it's already pre-populated here. I click on one of my models, and you see these are the small previews. You can, of course, as you learned in the first video, just go in here and change it to large previews like this. But I would really like Ortho Analyzer and the patient browser to do this for me every time. So basically, this is what the setting is for. So let me just close this again. And again, you probably guessed how this works. I put a tick in large previews. I save and commit my changes and open Ortho Analyzer again. And I'm now back. I open the patient browser. I find my model set, I click on this, and as you would expect, I now have the large previews on as default. So that concludes the how-to video on the Ortho control panel and especially the sections concerning the patient browser. Be sure to check out the remaining videos on the patient browser, and also if you would like to learn more about the control panel, make sure to check out the how-to video on that specifically. Thank you for watching.